Today is Tuesday, the 24th of May. We're at the Civic Center for our regular city council workshop. Please call the roll.
Before we get started, Jeff, can you hear everybody?
Pretty well. I'll holler if I.
Everybody can hear him?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, Miss Blackburn.
Here.
Miss Albrecht.
Here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here.
Miss Castro.
Here.
Mr. Tindler.
Present. Almost.
Jeff, it's good to see you. First item on the agenda is Flood Zone A. Ms. Blackburn.
Okay, I put this on the agenda because we are considering adopting, and Mel, you may have to help me out with the terminology, the state preferred ordinance for flood zones, not just A, for any flood zone. But it does deal with flood zone A. Flood zone A, for those people who don't know it, is a flood zone that has no base elevation determination. So what's been happening for people who build in flood zone A is the city's been telling them to build 1 foot above the highest adjacent grade, which is code for all building. So there was no difference in building in an X flood zone or an A flood zone. So as this process of adopting the state policy came up, it was found that in 2009, the city actually passed an ordinance that said for those people building in flood zone A, they had to build 3 feet above adjacent grade. So, everybody knows I'm a realtor. I have sold a few lots recently in flood zone A. My customers did their due diligence. They asked the city how high they had to build, and they were told 1 foot above adjacent grade, the highest adjacent grade. Come to find out, they have to build now 3 feet above. So, they were in an uproar. The state actually requires only 2, correct?
Their minimum requirements.
Their minimum requirement is 2. So we have been allowing people to build only 1 foot until recently, and now we're going to require them to build 3 feet. I don't have a problem with the 3 feet personally. What I have a problem with is going from 1 foot to 3 foot. When in 2009, if we had been enforcing the 2009 ordinance, no problem. I completely understand that. But it hasn't been enforced. It's been on the books, but it hasn't been enforced since 2009. I don't quite understand, what happened with that process, but that's what happened. So my suggestion is go with the state. We're adopting the state policy. The state policy says 2 foot. I don't think we should be more restrictive and require 3 foot. So and I have all of that documentation in the packet.
If I could just interject, when you say not enforced, that's not by any will of any person on the council or on the staff. It was because when the 2010 LDR got rewritten, it didn't get transferred from the 1 to the 3 in the LDR. And when building department uses the LDR as the Bible, that's where the 1 foot came about. So it was unbeknownst to anyone at the time.
Right. It was just recently discovered. This ordinance was just recently discovered, as I understand it. I guess what I don't understand is the building department has been our same building department for as long as I can remember, and certainly they were involved in that ordinance. So I'm not sure why they knew nothing about it, but it doesn't make any difference because that's what happened. So I'm not going into the past. You can't change that. But anyway, that's my suggestion, is that we just simply adopt the state ordinance and require 2 foot above adjacent grade instead of the more restrictive 3 foot.
If we already have an ordinance with 3 feet, then why don't we just change the LDR and say, we already have the ordinance, it was a typographical error or whatever it was, that it didn't get changed and it needs to be changed to meet our ordinance. Rather than going through, because if we change it to 2 feet, then we have to go through the whole ordinance process again. We already have one, we just haven't followed through. For whomever's fault it is, it doesn't really matter.
Personally, I don't care if it's 2 or 3 feet. The state standard is 2. If I was building in a flood zone, personally, I would build 3 anyway. You can always build higher, but you can't build lower. I understand your point. I appreciate your point. It's just a matter of, as we adopt our new floodplain regulations, are we going to go with 2 or 3 feet, the state standard or the standard in the 09 ordinance?
Right, totally up to you guys.
So, do we know why the 3 feet was decided in 2009? Because, I mean, the state, it's a minimum of 2, but it depends, I mean, the state covers a big area and lots of different topography. We're close to the coast, so I could see 3 making sense. Just wondered why it was 3, and we don't know why.
I don't have that history.
Don't have any history. I think AE may be 3.
I'm sorry?
AE, the flood, each flood zone has, you have to build higher and higher. I want to say AE is 3, but I have not actually confirmed that. I started to do research and then I got sidetracked, so I don't know that, so.
Well, I kind of agree with Linda. I mean, the ordinance is already in place. We just update, correct the LDR, and we move forward with 3. I mean, it does make sense that 3 would be proper for our area and where we're located if the minimum for the state in its entirety is 2. So unless we have some reason to believe that the 2009 ordinance was in error, I think we should go correct the LDR and just move this one forward unless we hear something else that tells us 3 is not the way to go.
Point of clarification, I've talked to at least one homeowner that is building in flood zone A, and I use the term the crest of the road, because generally the crest of the paved street is the highest point on many of our streets, and I used that point of reference when I was talking to this lady. The ordinance, you're correct though, it says the highest elevation, adjacent elevation. So, but in that case, it's actually, that road base is not the highest elevation. The actual land where she's living is the highest elevation because it's already been built up. Before that, it was 2 feet lower before it was built up. So again,
And I don't know how they actually determine that. I mean, I know they have an elevation certificate, but I'm not sure that the elevation certificate right now, because it's zone A and there is no base flood determined by FEMA, I don't actually know how they determine that, where they have to build, or how that elevation is, you know what I'm saying?
yes.
Well, I guess they would look at the highest adjacent grade, start
Right.
from there.
Which is
I mean,
her lot, I know which one you're talking about.
which is easy to do. I mean, at a minimum, regardless of what the LDR said, at a minimum, the building department is supposed to be enforcing Florida building code. If it said 2 feet, if that's the state requirement, we should have been enforcing 2 feet regardless of what was in the LDR. So, I would say folks who got away with 1 foot got lucky, but I don't think they got lucky. I think they would have been better off at 2 or 3 feet.
Ms. Reisinger, you want to comment?
Yeah, I did. I tried to get a hold of Mary on, I think it was Saturday. There's a place that they're building on, California, this end, 404. And they had, I don't know what they've done the last couple of days, but they had it, all the wood ready to pour. Now, if you want to look and check how high something should be, that would be a real good place to go look, because they're not high enough. They are going to flood there.
I know the lot you're talking about, you're talking closer to Maryland?
Yes.
I checked, that's in an X flood zone. They do not have to have flood insurance, so
Well,
they
they're
can
gonna
build.
be sorry.
Well, I understand that.
And in fact, if I knew who owned it, I was gonna call them and tell them I'm sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, and I don't want your whole house to get flooded. And it's going to, because that's low right there.
It is.
Okay. So do we want to put this on the agenda for a vote?
I have another question though, before we finish. That's a change from what we currently have. Mel, are there other changes? And forgive me for not knowing that, but I did read the state policy and tried to read ours and blah. So are there any other changes that our homeowners can expect when we adopt the state policy?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so that would be the only one.
Correct.
So I'm hearing 2 and 3, leave it 3. I've heard a recommendation for 2.
Well, that's my recommendation.
What about Jeff?
What about Jeff?
What does Jeff think?
I'm sorry, Jeff, you're out there, buddy.
Right, I'm here now, I'm listening.
What do you
Seems like we should- If we're adopting a state flood zone plan, we should probably use the recommended state elevations. They say 2 feet, or we've made overkill with our 3, which is never too that bad in a flood zone, but why are we exceeding the state requirements?
I believe, as I understand it, the state requirement says a minimum of 2 feet, not 2 feet, a minimum of 2 feet, and depending on the area, you may want to go higher. And that's probably why ours is set at 3. Because I agree with Ms. Reisinger, even in an X flood zone here, you need to go up.
I just think it should be up to the homeowner. You know, why be more restrictive? The state says 2, I get it. We've been requiring 1, go from 1 to 2. If they want to build higher, you know, certainly they have that option. I just don't think we should be more restrictive, but that's all I have to say.
And just add the word minimum, has to be a minimum, so that some people don't think that it's just 2. Minimum, if they want to go more.
I think the council needs to do a little more research and find out why it was set at 3 in 2009. I'm sure there was a reason for that, rather than just going with the state minimum, because again, the state's a large area. And I think 3 is probably, I don't know, anybody on P and Z then remember why it was set at 3?
Sir, you have a comment?
Well, my concern is these people that we've told can build it at 1 foot above flood level. If they build at that place and they flood out and insurance comes in and says, well, you build less than state requirement, where do they end? They're out to lunch. And they've got our authority of blessing to build it at that height. Have you notified them or anything like that?
We have not talked to anyone so far. I haven't.
Well, I'm talking to Mary, and she
Okay.
said she's the one that brought it up, her people.
I know that the 2 people that brought it to my attention have not pulled permits. I'm assuming that if they had pulled permits before the 2009 ordinance was discovered, they're okay, they won't be penalized. Well, I'm going to step back and say, will they be penalized? Will anybody be penalized for, their flood insurance will be higher because they're not built correctly, built to the elevation. So they'll be penalized that way. But will there be any kind of other consequence if?
Well, as you know, the floodplain people do compliance audits, and they were here in the fall and did find some properties that didn't meet that. So we're finding other ways to mitigate that, as opposed to having that 3 feet thing.
What are those other ways to mitigate that?
One particular person has to put louvers to allow water out of his garage in case the levels of the water gets into his garage.
So you are saying that, is that because they built their home after the 2009 ordinance? Or are all people who are in a flood zone A required to bring their homes up to this standard?
They're not required to, but just as you indicated, their premiums for flood insurance is going to be a lot higher.
So they're doing that for their flood insurance premiums, the mitigation.
Right.
Got it.
And we kind of get a slap on the wrist for not following things the correct way.
So what will that do to us as a city? Anything?
We'll just get a nasty
Financially.
gram letter from the state that says you need to start enforcing your ordinances as you should have been all along.
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding, at the end of the day, the general contractor is responsible for following Florida building code. That contractor is on the hook for, I mean, they built the house, it's their job to follow Florida building code, even though our inspection and our requirements should have been accurate.
But I don't think elevation is a Florida building code.
Well, if the state requirement is 2 feet, yes, it is. That's a state requirement, it absolutely
It
is.
Just like the CCCL, it's got, that's.
Well, that's true.
Okay, let's put this on the pre-agenda for discussion of whether or not we're gonna have to change the order. Okay, fire issue concerns and next steps, Ms. Castro.
I just wanted to bring this up one more time on the fire and the ESU issue. I know that our first responders do a great job with the restrictions that they have in handling our emergencies here, but I believe our city, our citizens deserve an EMT or a paramedic as the first responder, and I think we need to be talking to Bay County. We need to be figuring out what we need to do to raise the level. We're getting busy, Gulf County's getting busier as more visitors come during the summer, and for our folks to still be in a position where we wait on a Gulf County ambulance, I don't think that's right for our citizens. And I think this council has an obligation to at least explore looking at the cost and what it would entail raising that level.
Mel, do you want to weigh in on your conversations with Bay County?
I'll let Mark do that, because Mark has been meeting with them much more than I have.
The way it's set up right now with Bay County, because of the stretch between Tyndall and everybody else, the cost of getting an ambulance out here full-time with our call volume is going to cost a lot of money.
Let them tell us what that cost is. A lot of money
Rough
doesn't.
estimate is just over $600,000 a
Well,
year.
let them lay it all out for us, let them give us the details, and let the council take a look at it. I think the council needs to have all of those details, and they need to be making that decision and deciding if it's too much or not enough, or how would we pay for it, how could we supplement it. I mean, our citizens deserve more, and we're growing, and I just feel like now's the time that the council needs to take a serious look at it, and I think that the council needs to have all of those details from Bay County and let the council make that decision as to whether or not they want to explore it further. It's just my opinion.
Okay, we've got budget cycle coming up in 45 days. Can you have information for us to consider at that time?
I can call them tomorrow and see what they can get me.
And then put it together, is that suitable?
What about Gulf County? I know you've talked about them. I mean, our kids go to Gulf County schools, and Bay County reciprocates Gulf. So what are the options of using Gulf?
That's what we use now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I meant to have it here.
Feasible for them, it's not right now. They don't have the staff or the funding, and they would be another tremendous cost to the city to get one of them stationed over here also.
But again, let's get the details of the cost, saying a lot, saying tremendous. Let's look at it and take a close look and see what makes sense. We're not the only city in our situation, and I just, to say that because there's an Air Force base between us and the rest of the county, that our citizens should have to, have a different level of service than the rest of the county. I don't agree with that. I think our citizens deserve the same level of service that anybody else in Bay County gets. And I don't care if it comes from Gulf County, but I think our citizens deserve
I
it.
have a comment.
Go ahead.
Our fire and ESU have been neglected, and we're gonna have to pass on, myself and Tanya, to y'all's good hands. For our next budget series this summer, we've got to get good numbers from these folks for what is required to at least bring us up a little bit. I mean, we don't have to have the LaGuardia Fire Department out there, but, you know, we are lacking in a lot of areas, so as part of the budget process for the next fiscal year, we really need to get some numbers together and see what we can do for fire and ESU. Those are our two weakest points.
Okay. You got that, Mark? Okay, both ways. Okay. City Hall, if we must, Ms. Catherine.
Yeah, you tabled it the last meeting, so it's been on every single meeting agenda since this process started, and I wanted to make sure it was on this last meeting agenda since you tabled it. I tabled it before you to the next meeting, and you wanted to table it again, so the ball's in your court.
Okay. I have nothing to talk about on City Hall tonight.
Well, anybody else have anything to talk about on City Hall?
No,
Guys interested
Jeff
in
gave us this map and he said you asked him to draw this. So I
On the
get,
City Hall, I think we spent 2 years doing all kinds of studies and analysis and where to put it, and what to build, and how to build it, what specs, getting bids. Why aren't we ready to pull the trigger? I mean, we've got a low bid in, with a good builder. We need to get a building done. I mean, why are we waiting? I'll make a motion to accept that and bid bid.
Did you hear the site work estimate, Jeff? Well, you weren't here last week. The site work, 150 to 160, in addition to the 416, and the 416 is just their base bid. They fully expected to sit down with the city after the bid was awarded and handle all of the specifics through change orders. So 416 will not be F&B's final number.
But 416 is their turnkey building price with utilities 10 feet from the building. And that is for a building with a 50-year life expectancy.
Right, so, you know, apparently everybody else is gonna have the same add-on that they're gonna have.
And we're gonna have the same add-on for site engineering and everything else, no matter what else we do. I agree with you. I'm waiting for someone else to second your motion, but if they don't, I will.
Yeah, you know, this is a workshop. I know we have set precedent and we're gonna vote at every meeting. You know, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that, didn't agree with it the first time it happened, don't agree with it now. It's a workshop, it's not a voting meeting. I think we need to stick to voting meetings once a month and not make every meeting a voting meeting. I know we've been talking about this issue forever, but this is just one issue. So it sets the precedent. So every time something comes up before us, whether it's the first time or the 10th millionth time, we're gonna be called to vote on it. I don't like that.
so if when Jeff from Dewberry came in, he gave us this and he said that you had asked him to draw it. What was your purpose of having this drawn for us today?
I simply asked him to, I know you can't see this, Jeff Tindler, but it's simply a drawing of the park that we have on file, and they took the 3,200 foot building that we put out for bid and just superimposed it onto the park.
Okay.
As simple as that. It's been moved 2 or 3 different times. One time it was way over here by the basketball court, and then it was back over here on this side. And this drawing simply shows that the building would basically go where the swing set is, which would leave plenty of room for parking and this and that.
But would we want to put the city
No,
hall right in the middle of the park?
You got other plans too.
Yes, we do.
Trevor Rich's done other plate positionings of the building too.
Jeff,
Slightly more to the east.
are you guys continuing to redo all these drawings at no cost? I mean,
Pardon me?
these are freebies that you're doing for the taxpayers, or?
An exhibit like that, yes, we did not charge the city for that. So, just as others have asked us to look into stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if the vote is to put it, to take that park, I think Mary said it best in our last meeting, it just doesn't make sense. But if we do this, I mean, basically, you're gonna stick the city hall right in the middle of the park?
And this is where I prefer to see it, yep. It's not right in the middle of the park. It's facing Paradise Path.
And we have designs for Gravel Ridge showing it park on the eastern end of the park lot.
That's correct. We could take down the pavilion and the shuffleboard court and put it on the east end just as well. Same size building.
Yeah, I think all of our stormwater work, all of the stuff that they did originally was with the location at the end.
Yeah, and I like
That's-
that.
Right, and that's the one they use for all the engineering of the site to come up with the price.
So we're looking at 416 plus 150 for site, so we're looking at 566 base. And I don't know how much we have in our fund for the building.
Well, as Mary said last meeting, we don't have enough for any of the options. We don't have enough of the insurance proceeds left for any option, but we've got to make a decision. We can't continue without a city hall. So we've got to decide what we're going to do.
Well, some people are saying just leave them where they're at,
Well, that's an option too.
you know, just
I
leave
don't
them
think-
where they're at.
That's not a viable option.
Well, I'm just saying that this is what some of the citizens are saying.
There
You know,
is
we've
that
gone-
option.
We are going over, we've gone over this for 2 years, and that's just another option from some of the residents.
So let me ask a question about the, and I think that there were citizens' hands raised too. The F&B bill, which was, bid, which was the lowest bid. I don't know the process, so are we allowed to have him come in here, discuss what exactly that 415 includes and what it doesn't include,
Yes,
and before we award it?
yes.
And are we able to say to him, we don't have that much money, knock it down? Get something out, do something, whatever it takes, because his bid does not include the site work, the parking. I'm not sure if it includes, because I can't remember, this might be included in the site work, the demolition of the park, all of those things.
No, his work doesn't cover any of that,
Right,
just the
We
building.
We didn't ask for that. We asked for a building,
right.
a turnkey, commercial spec building.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, can we get those numbers down? I don't know what it includes to knock out, you know me, I've said it 10,000 times, I'm not for bells and whistles, I'm for a basic building. So if we can get a basic building for 415,
We can get Nick's advice at the next meeting, but I don't, we can't do any kind of engineering forward or backward until he's got a contract.
okay, that's what
Not
I
in
was
good
asking.
faith.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I was asking.
He won the bid fair and square.
Yeah, but he can tell us what he's
He hasn't won
included
the
in that
He
bid.
hasn't won the bid.
Right.
Let's
He is the
don't
low-
use those terms.
He is the low bidder, fair and
But
square.
we didn't say
Right.
low bidder, we said lowest and best, so let's make
Excuse me,
sure.
Go ahead.
Gravel Ridge has already done the site work, like 90% of it. They already know an estimate on how much that's gonna cost. And since we've not got enough in the fund for no matter what option we were picking, we would have to make that up out of, say, reserves. I mean, if you have to take 100,000 out of reserves to finish the city hall, that's the only way you're gonna do it.
Jeff, I don't know how close that's gonna come. This bid is well below what we have in the fund to use.
Right, so there's not gonna be much left, we're not gonna be short a tremendous amount, you know. So whatever shortage, we can make it up out of our reserve fund, and the reserve fund is healthy. And, we're gonna have a city hall, we have to do something to get it done.
agree.
Well, we keep saying that this low bid is only $416. We have $150,000 to $160,000 worth of site work. We cannot forget about that. You have to add that to that building cost. But I think it's a great idea to have Kelly come in and explain that bid to the council, because as he explained it to me, there are things that we know we're gonna need that's not in this, because I asked him specifics that I know we're gonna need. It's not in that bid.
So say with site work and all, you're gonna come in at 575.
With
Yeah.
zero, that's with zero changes.
I don't think it's gonna be that much.
Well, we've got 5.25 or so in the fund, so we're only short 50. I mean, that's not gonna break the bank. We have to use some reserves to finish this project.
That's correct. Hold on 1 second. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your patience.
As a commercial contractor, I just want to warn you, I looked at those plans, there's not details to them, there's not specifications to them. A base bid is totally different than your final bid. I noticed that one of the other bidders actually itemized allowances. I don't know if that would be did, but another one of the bidders did. If you come back now and you have a full set of plans and now he retakes this off and they're showing details that he wasn't included in his base bid, yes. I mean, as a contractor, I love what y'all doing. Because you're gonna give me the base bid, you're gonna award it to me, and I'm gonna come back and say, okay, now here's the engineer and architect drawings. That wasn't included in my base bid. I just hope you're very cautious, because this is not going to be your final cost.
Okay, thank you. I don't think anyone expected to be the final cost, because the site work has to be done, the stormwater systems have to be installed. There are special requirements that we did not put in our bid package, like every room in the building's got to have a computer. So when the wiring goes in, it's got to be wired for computers in every room. Sure, there's going to be some things, but those are minor changes,
And I
not structural
understand that,
changes.
but the other bidder was listing his allowances. There's so much that's missing here, because you just have such a simplified plan that you took it off of.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That same bidder also specifically excluded adding some of those things he had on his to his total price. I was a little bit surprised that he was giving us prices for add-ons that I felt like should have already been included in the building.
But that's where we have to be cautious.
I agree.
So if we're spending 566, for sure, and probably more, and I know we would love a new building, is it more beneficial to go with the Foley and have an acre of land? And have the growth there in 20, 30 years? I don't know that any one of us want to build something for 5 years and then can't use it. So I'm just throwing that out as the other option. But
I've heard
I
that.
I know how you feel, and we've mentioned that just as the
Yet another
city
option.
hall on the postage stamp we've mentioned. We keep going around and around with both of them. So,
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at spending taxpayer money, you have to look at where will the taxpayers get the best bang for their buck? Where are they going to get the best bang for their buck? What's going to accommodate growth later so that, as Linda said, 5 years down the road, we're not out of space? And you have to look at what you're getting and what it's costing you. And 566, which I know is gonna, I'm with you, Joy, after talking to Kelly, I know that price is gonna go up. So 566 base bid, taking a third of our park, we don't have room for growth, that it is what it is, and versus an acre of land. It doesn't even make sense that we're even debating this. I don't even understand why we think
I
this
would
is a
really
good
appreciate
idea.
the table not using numbers that are not justifiable. The base bid that F&B Builders gave us is $416,000.
You just said, Mayor, that you can't forget about all the site work, which is 150 to 160,000.
You don't have that. You don't have that documentation.
Well,
Yes.
we asked Dewberry last week, because last time we met, because you were saying that you thought it was 90,000, or that number was thrown out. So I asked Dewberry last week when Dina and Jeff were both here, and they said between 130 and 170,000. So I think that's where I was saying 150, because that's kind of in the middle one. So we did ask our engineers last meeting. Do I have it in writing? No.
Well, I mean, they did a lot of detailed analysis a couple of years ago to come up with that. And, I mean, we all know that supply and demand, prices are up, not down. So what we estimated 2 years ago is going to be even greater now. And the longer it takes to get going, it's going to be more. So I think 150, 160 is a good number. I think it's going to be higher than that, but I think it's a reasonable number. And they did do a lot of detailed work, went through, and they involved Northwest Florida Stormwater Management. I think everyone was involved to make sure we could do this and put it on the park property. So this number wasn't just pulled out of the air. These are detailed numbers they've been working with for 2 years.
Nevertheless, go ahead,
I
Jeff.
speak to growth, this factor, growth has got to be a big consideration. The building that we've chosen and had designed is almost double what we currently use. I mean, the space we're in at current City Hall operation is probably half of what this building's going to do. And in the last census, our population declined. Since then to now, it's gone up a little bit. I got this from trying to study that impact piece stuff. Our population has not grown very much. There's been a lot of vacations home built, but the actual population has not grown that much. And if you double the city, we've already got a building in there that's twice as big as we're using now. So I think there's growth built into this facility that we're considering. I don't think we gotta go past that. We cannot expand east, we cannot expand west, we cannot expand south, and to the north is swamp. There's not a tremendous place for Mexico Beach to grow.
When
we can have some growth, it's not gonna be something that's gonna sink the whole process.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't use our current situation as the standard we're trying to achieve. I mean, we've got people doubled up in offices. It's not in its current form a good functioning facility, and I don't think any of us who have gone in there very often think that it's working well. It's not. We've got our public records piled in a garage, in the garage part. I mean, it's just not working well. And when you talk about growth, Jeff, for a community like ours, you can't just look at the permanent population, because every time a house is built, that's one more water, sewer, and sanitation account, another stormwater, another property with stormwater the city's got to manage. Whether that person is living here or not, when that property is developed, that's growth, and that changes. And if we doubled that property just on the outside here at Tyndall, that was annexed in, when that property is developed, even the one that's in Bay County, not even in the city of Mexico Beach, Bay County is expecting us to serve them water, sewer, sanitation. That's what I mean by growth. It's not just our permanent population, it's how our city is being developed now and the growth that we're seeing.
Jeff, I completely agree with you. We're in about 1,350 feet right now, just getting by. It's been an untenable situation for a long time. We do need a city hall. We need a good administrative building. That's why we chose about 3,200 feet, which is certainly more than double the space we're using now. It is going to be adequate for some time into the future. We'll see how development goes, but the administrative function doesn't necessarily have to grow correspondingly to the population, even if we take in another 150 acres and have another 1,000 houses. the function of the office will still be about the same.
That's totally not true. It's totally, you probably never run public utilities, that's totally not true. You're gonna need help. But I don't know, that, I brought it up, it's been on every agenda. You guys,
And so,
it falls in your lap.
on piggybacking on Mary's idea, you know, we've always just move it on to our voting meeting, have one voting meeting instead of all of a sudden having something to vote on every single time.
There's a motion on the floor.
Was it seconded?
It was not. Jeff, we're gonna let your motion die, for lack of a second right now, but we are gonna look at, our meeting sequence, in July or June. Because either we're gonna do it one way or we're gonna do it the other way, and we're gonna have to do that.
I was trying to get my name on the plaque.
We're gonna name it the Tindler Building, what you talking about? And not posthumously, we hope, okay?
Would it be possible to get F&B in here to discuss their bid
At the
at the
pre-agenda?
pre-agenda?
I'll certainly ask them to come, and we can talk about the specifics of their bid. I have talked to him, Ms. Castro has talked to him. I'm comfortable with what he's offering us, and I know that we gotta have some add-ons to it, but also know that we have the funds to take care of it.
And from where? What funds do we have available?
Well, we have $1.2 million in reserves.
So
We have $500,000 in utility fund. We have a lot of money, just like we're gonna have to look at for funding of the park. We're $174,000 short. So we'll have to look at all those things in the budget.
So I think that the council is making an official request for Kelly to come address the council and answer our questions. So Mel, that would be up to you to contact him and let him know, because elected officials need to stay out of the bid process.
Indeed.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, if you have all that money, why don't you just purchase the Foley House? It makes more sense. You have all that space, you have that land, it's an acre land. To put a building the side of the seat is ridiculous. You won't have the parking. And I know you don't like the idea, but don't you think the citizens of Mesquite Beach should have a say?
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Last item on the agenda is miscellaneous. Anybody have any miscellaneous?
I do. I didn't get it on the agenda. I was asking Nick something regarding Parker funding, and you just kind of brought it up and said we're short 174, but according to my calculations, we're not. If we needed 268 and Bay County was giving us 100, so that would be 168, and we have 130 in Park and Rec, we could take 100 from that. So that would give us 68 left. We cannot use, in checking with Nick, we cannot use the road transportation fund because it is not a through road. So that's out, but we can use utility. And I think we have 700, we could take the rest of that out of the utility tax and Parker Park would be done. So we do have the money. So maybe we can, I know we talked to the bidder with the contingency that we had the funds. We do have the money, 100 plus 100 from Park and Rec, and the rest out of utility tax. So I would like to, we're not going to vote on it tonight, but I would like to put it on the agenda so that we can vote on it in.
You've already done a first reading of that.
June,
It's already
right.
happened. You have to do a second reading to adopt it. It's already in progress.
So we do have the money.
It's already in process. That was our
Yeah.
special meeting last week.
I know, but you said before we were short
And
174,000.
when is the next?
And we're not.
When's the
'cause
sec?
we-
Yeah, I agree.
Budget.
Yeah, it depends, it kind of depends on what we're talking about, whether or not the mayor thinks we have the money. So Adrian, do we have that scheduled already?
The what?
Do we have the second reading scheduled?
Yeah, it's at the regular meeting on the 14th.
the last May meeting, so I would like to thank everybody for their help while I was performing my 2 years duty. It was an honor to work with you folks. I thought we did good work. We didn't quite get to where I wanted to be, but we didn't go wrong either. So I appreciate everything everybody did. I'm kind of glad this is over for me.
Jeff, we do appreciate you, brother, and we hope you well, and hope everything comes out real good up there in Atlanta. You're in good hands, and we look forward to seeing you back down here at the Holy Land real soon.
Thank you very much. Things are working. We're on the positive side with all the results, and I'm actually feeling so good I'm embarrassed.
Jeff, do you want to keep me to keep you on after the meeting? Do you want to talk to anybody afterwards, or should we just disconnect you at the end? Sorry, do you want us to keep you on after the meeting to talk to anyone, or should we just disconnect you when we're done?
Okay, just disconnect.
Okay.
Linda, were you going to talk about the trash issue? I think you said you might, but if you're not, that's okay.
No, because
I don't need to talk
I
about
let
it.
everybody know.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the sewage problem that happened. I heard it out in the news. Does anybody have anything to say about it?
I was going to ask for an update on that as well.
Okay, that's why I have my little yellow sticky note here. Just to bring everybody up to speed, we have our lift station on 14th Street, which malfunctioned by the float system not working correctly. In other words, they didn't move with the level of the sewage in the station, which meant the pumps never turned on. It overflowed to the manhole at 12th Street, which then worked its way north into the ditch on 12th Street, which then runs into the 8th Street Canal. And as you know, the 8th Street Canal leads to the Gulf of Mexico. The DEP and the county's health department did issue a swimmer's advisory for the area adjacent to the area between 8th and 9th Street, in other words, the canal. The levels at 12th Street in the ditch itself are okay now. Where the 12th Street ditch runs into 8th Street is okay now. We've taken numerous samples of the Gulf water itself at various places around the city. Those levels have always been okay. The only level that is a little higher than we'd like at the particular time is at the mouth of the 8th Street Canal itself. In other words, you'll go down there now and you'll see about 4 signs warning people to steer clear. It might be unsafe. So the swimmer's advisory is still in effect at this particular time. The levels from last week are down from last week, but they're not to the safe level yet. But putting that behind us, keep in mind we did some testing of the 8th Street Canal before the spill. And they were already double what is allowed by DEP. So we have a problem in our canal somewhere. So we are working with Dewberry, to formulate a plan that we're starting to try to identify where that problem is occurring. In other words, we have to do testing on various places of the canal to find out where the highest concentrations are. Once we do that, we're going to do some dye testing, perhaps some smoke testing, and just figure it all out. So it's going to be a process, but keep in mind the Gulf is safe for swimming.
Good.
I have something, sir. I just want to remind everyone, as we're starting to get into the season, we're already having some parking issues. The area between 36th Street, Tranquil Harbor, the old boat launch, and the villas, we're having a line of sight issue with people parking in that area. I seen an almost crash today because someone was parked right beside the driveway going down into the villas. There is signs that are missing on that shoulder of the roadway that was removed some years ago that says no parking on that, in that section. if you're within 20 feet of an intersection, you're blocking the line of sight, plain and simple. And we had this complaint last year, and when we were doing a visual study to see if it was a valid complaint, we had to actually call in officers to direct traffic because people were double stacked on that shoulder of the road on both sides of that entrance to Tranquil Harbor. So in saying that, please spread the word, 20 feet, at least give everyone 20 feet to be able to look out from any side street, driveway, or anything else. Without that 20 feet buffer, we're going to have more crashes, which I've already reported to the council. Also, the complaints on the boat trailer parking I'm sure you guys have received complaints. I know I have. The signs are up now, and we did have one boat trailer that was towed last week. I believe it was put there out of pure test. It was broken into, and actually broken completely into when the wrecker came and picked it up. It had been left there for about a week. It was missing tires, it was missing runner boards, and like I said, the frame was broke 3/4 of the way through when they parked it.
Maybe they wanted you to get rid of it, is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yes ma'am. I think that they used the city and the police to have it towed away for them, so, and it was. So if everyone would just try and work with us, we have been issuing citations at the boat ramp for not paying, and the signage is there now, so we need them to start complying, or we're going to have to start citing if we can prove who they are. And like we said before, if it's not tagged, it's in violation of abandoned property. So just wanted to give the updates before the big weekend, the start of the season.
So Chief, you're saying between Tranquil Harbor and the villas, that's a no parking zone on the north side of Highway 98?
Yes, ma'am.
Shouldn't be parking there. If you're parking there, you're gonna get towed.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you're parking within 20 feet of an intersection, what about a driveway?
Same thing.
20
Yes, ma'am.
feet of an intersection or a driveway, you're gonna be towed.
Or
If it's a no-
definitely ticketed.
ticketed.
Yes, ma'am. If it's not moved within 6 hours per ordinance, it can be towed. And if you read into the ordinance, it's also talking about if it's interfering with traffic. And the intersection, it goes into great detail about how big an intersection is, and the angles where they connect. I'm saying 20 feet from a driveway or a entranceway, limited access, which is what that is going down into Tranquil Harbor. There was only one car there today, one, and it almost caused a crash. I mean, she tried to inch out and she couldn't see. And when she inched out just enough to the, I guess, near the fog line, she had to slam on brakes because there was vehicles traveling. So that was ticketed, and the guy came and asked me to commit a crime and take care of the ticket, and I sent him on his way. And I explained what he was doing was a crime as well. So we're just asking for people to help. And like I said, that was DOT regulated, no parking on that side of the roadway.
So the parking at the boat and trailer parking there at the end of Pier Drive, I know last year the council said no more long-term parking there. That was there, I think, initially when the boat ramp was across the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And so last year we had you tow or have things removed that was parked there.
Yes, ma'am.
So it was my understanding that parking was temporary for those people who live there on Pier Drive if they needed to park a boat or a trailer they were visiting. I know we've got a big, huge boat there and a big, huge trailer there right now. It makes it difficult to get out. And I know that guy doesn't live there.
Right.
So what are we doing with Pier Drive and how are we enforcing that? Because we don't want to get back into the habit of people now using basically taxpayer property as their personal storage space.
Right. The boat, I know the boat that you're talking about, he actually came in and met with us, and Officer Brenna H. Yesterday, and he was cited for where he was parked at previously, and that will be going before a magistrate hearing, I'm sure. And I know that there was talk about taking that boat trailer parking that's at the north end of 37th Street and turning it into more parking spaces. I don't think the council has made a decision to move forward on that. It's still in the ordinance that you can't park any further than that light pole, the first light pole. But there's no indication in the ordinance that says that, you know, it's being restricted. And I know 3 days was the time frame for the temporary parking in that area.
Now Pier Road is public parking. That's not for, the middle parking is public parking.
Yes, ma'am.
Because all of those townhomes have their
Two.
dedicated parking in front of their units, but the middle of the road is public parking.
Right.
We have the diagonal lines for parking. And then we have, do we still have, terrible that I don't know this, but do we still have the big spaces where boats used to park?
Right,
on
that's
the
what we're
top?
talking about. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
yeah, okay.
Right.
So is that allowed for them to park there?
Per ordinance it is, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It hasn't changed.
You said for 3 days?
Yes, ma'am. 3 days.
So somebody could park their boat and trailer there for 3 days, move it for a day, bring it back and park it. I mean, so we've essentially created long-term parking there. And remember last year, Mary, we had the chief, we instructed the police department to go move all of those people who have been using that for their own personal storage
Months.
for months and months, and we had them move it. So really, the ordinance doesn't really stop them from doing that. They just have to move the boat once, trailer and boat once every 3 days, and they can continue to use it. I just think that it needs to be more public parking is needed, and we need to not let people who should be paying for storage at one of the storage places using public parking for their own personal boat storage, and that's what's happening.
Right, and that area was used when we had the boat launch, the only boat launch, well, there was 2 boat launches,
Right.
one on Miramar and one on Highway 98 and 37th Street. I can remember directing traffic in the mornings on the weekends, and that's where the no parking came from as well, because they didn't want anybody parking on that shoulder of the road. The boats and trucks had to pull over to there and line up and wait on boats to launch and then pull out. My suggestion is to take that area because it's open. There should be no left turns coming out of express lane. They pay no attention to that. They're going down the wrong way. It is a one-way street, and if we had more parking spaces out there, that would help alleviate the turning left coming out of the side of express lane. And it would also better serve like Tommy T's and overflow from the express lane if that was, boat trailer parking is just a problem that we have everywhere. But that's my suggestion, put parking spaces in that spot.
Anything else?
You mentioned there were some signs missing, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are we getting those replaced?
I will be contacting DOT, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I know that Mr. Tindler can't see my shirt or Jack Miller's shirt, but I think he's got great fashion sense today.
Scary.
And also, Mr. Tindler, Mrs. Castro, thank you so much for your serving.
Yes, ma'am. Last thing.
I just have a question about 37th Street. I guess it's also referred to as Pier Road. I'm wondering if the council had maybe considered allowing the trash pickup to be, I guess assessed at like a, I don't know, it's not a special circumstance up there on 37th Street, but I read with interest the letter to the editor that ran in the Star. To me, it just
we're looking into all that. The Public Works Director's been talking to folks for weeks now, and I'm talking to folks as well. We're going to try the ordinance just like it is for June, and we're going, and we're going to get all the kinks worked out of it. Yeah. That's the only fair thing to do, because, for example, I've had one person to advocate 37th Street getting an exemption. And the very next day, a realtor came to me and said, well, I want an exemption for all my rentals in Mexico Beach. So it just muddies the water. So we're going to try it just like it is and see how it come out and tweak it.
And let's just keep reminding the people that to not go onto private property was something that our city attorney recommends, that we should stop that practice of going onto private property collecting sanitation. So that was at the guidance of our city attorney.
But we're still going on private property to take the garbage cans back.
Well, we don't have to be.
But that's what we're doing.
We should be pulling them off the road, not taking them all the way back to the back.
That's not what was discussed, that's not what was said
That's
to us.
not what the ordinance says.
I agree with Mary 100%. That's not what we discussed. It didn't get put in writing, that we said we'd carry the cans back so they don't blow all over everywhere.
I don't remember that one.
I do.
No, it's not, but that's exactly what we talked about many, many times.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.